Hello everyone, welcome to day 5 of the DUEL challenge for May 2020. So we've done a lot of workouts this week. We've discussed a lot of movement, stability. We did our first bodyweight session yesterday. Today, as I spoke about earlier in the week, this is going to be about nutrition. We're going to start off with a very basic topic that everyone talks about but very, very few focus on. So we're going to start off nice and simple, and then we can build on this foundation as the months go on. So yeah, sit back, have a watch now for the next sort of 20 minutes. I hope you enjoy the content, and we're definitely going to finish on some very practical steps which can help you, regardless of whether you're trying to lose weight or put on muscle. We're going to really focus this more around weight loss, but it's actually we're going to focus on what are the general descriptions of calories. Why are they important? What is it? How does it work? What are the different types? What does the science say? And what can we do about it? So we're going to discuss all those little points. We're going to do a little flyover of all these points, a little summary, and we're going to end in a few very simple practical steps. And of course, it's down to you whether you want to choose to focus on this or not. Very, very true that you can't out-train a bad diet. So you're exercising so tremendously well right now, it does make sense that we can support this with fantastic nutrition, and we're going to start off with the subject of calories today. So calories is basic physics and biology. It's not opinion. A lot of opinions, but ultimately, you know, we can discuss the pros and cons of any particular food, but you know, this pales into insignificance without looking at the bigger picture. I often hear, you know, where we might discuss, you know, whether a banana has too much sugar or not, but when the other 98% of the diet doesn't support health, then the discussion is futile. Valid, but futile amongst the bigger picture. So, you know, there's so many diets out there that you know, for people to choose from, and you know, which one is the best? You know, they all have their science about them, whether it might be intermittent fasting, keto diet, paleo diet, and all various other diets. They all have their science about them, but none of them can escape the fact that they all have to satisfy physics and the calorie balance equation. So hence why we're starting on that particular subject today. So what are calories? A calorie is actually a unit of energy. Historically, scientists have defined a calorie to mean a unit of energy or heat that would come from a variety of sources, such as coal or gas. But obviously, in a nutritional sense, all types of food, whether they are fats, proteins, carbohydrates, or sugars, are important sources of calories which people need to live and function. So our brains, our muscles, every cell in our body require energy to function in its optimal state. So for one, we want to nourish our body right and our brain right. And if we don't get enough of these nutrients that calories provide, there are negative consequences, whether it's losing lean muscle mass, not being able to concentrate, or not having the energy we need on a day-to-day basis. So, you know, we talk a lot about calories being about a deficit, but actually we need calories to perform basic metabolic functions, breathing, heart rate, brain, respiration, all these sort of systems which require calories to do that. And we want to keep that optimum while also us wanting to maintain the weight sort of goals that we have. So this is our slide is a super oversimplification. So there's obviously, we're going to get a bit more specific as the slides go on, but ultimately, how many calories does a person need in a day depends on actually the individual's activity level and also their metabolic rate. So people have different metabolisms. Metabolism will reduce as you get older. Metabolism will reduce if you don't have a lean muscle mass. So obviously with our training, it's super important that we do strength. It's super important that we do those muscles, work muscles in that particular way, because lean muscle mass improves our metabolism. So as we get older, it's very important that we do that type of training. So we all have different resting metabolic rates. And when we're younger, we tend to have a slightly higher metabolism. And obviously, we all have different activity levels as well. So we're all in the middle of a challenge, so our activity levels are quite high. So One, we're obviously burning a lot of calories, which is fantastic for weight management, but also we do need to make sure that we're kind of having the right calories to making sure that our muscles grow, repair, and recover. So there's different types of macronutrients, and they all have a standard amount of calories. So 1 gram of protein has around 4 calories. 1 gram of carbohydrate has around 4 calories. And 1 gram of fat has about 9 calories. So this is probably where we've seen in the past fat can have that very negative connotation. An actual fact, fats have a lot of goodness about them. A lot of our vitamins and minerals require us to have fat within our diet to be able to absorb them. A lot of vitamins are fat soluble, not just water soluble. So the fats are very, very good. But of course, 1 gram of fat does have 9 calories. So when we're looking at the overall calorie picture, we do need to take into account that fact. So the nutritional guidelines, again, oversimplification, say that about 45 to 65% of calories should come from carbohydrates, 20 to 25% should come from fat, and 10 to 35% should come from protein. Oversimplification, we're going to go more into macronutrients next week actually, and we're going to talk about the protein in particular as being a powerhouse for us to keep our metabolism high, but make sure we're recovering and we're regenerating as well. So again, I just wanted to introduce this as a basic. Children need a higher proportion of fat, generally between 25 to 40% of their calories, and no more than 25% of those calories coming from added sugars. So on this next slide, what are high calorie foods? I want you to have a guess as to how many calories on the image on the left and then how many on the image on the right. Well, let's just have a little look through those. I want to put a number, a calorie number to each image. You feel like you've got one? The answer is, well, for one, they're actually the same. Both equate to 1,870 calories, 1,870 calories, both pictures. And actually that can be the daily requirement for many people, and certainly for many who aren't doing exercise. So you can see which ones are more calorie dense. So foods that are considered high calorie or calorie dense have a high amount of calories relative to their serving size. You can see on the image on the left, it's much smaller in size, but carries the same amount of calories. It's very dense. It's packed full of calories, probably many more than maybe coming from the fats that might get added to it. So again, on the picture on the right, you have plenty of fats in there, but ultimately they're spread out amongst those, and you can get more. So your oils, butter, and other fats, fried foods, sugary sweets are high calorie foods, while high calorie foods are often also associated with junk foods. Some are actually high in nutrients as well. So healthy foods that are high in calories might include, say, the avocado, 227 calories each. Quinoa, quinoa is absolutely amazing. It's got your complete protein, you've got complete proteins in that, but it is 222 calories per cup. Nuts, there's 128 calories per cup of peanuts. Olive oil, 119 calories per tablespoon. Whole grains, and in moderation, dark chocolate, 648 calories per bar. So according to the National Nutrition Database. So raisins are an example of high calorie food that might surprise some people. You can eat 1 cup of grapes and get the same amount of calories as from 1/4 cup of raisins. So my message here is just a part of our education is to know that certain foods are more calorie dense than others. And as my warning here is, as I talk about healthy foods which are high in calories, it's not to turn around and say, I shouldn't eat nuts, I shouldn't eat avocados. You absolutely should and can eat those, but we need to look at the bigger calorie picture. Have those things in your diet if you enjoy them, but we just need to make sure that we're factoring in those calories into our daily requirement when we're looking to calculate that. Okay, so let's look at maybe low-calorie foods. So foods that are considered low-calorie have a low amount of calories relative to their serving size, opposite of the high-calorie. Fruits, especially vegetables, are usually relatively low in calories. So, for example, 2 cups of shredded romaine lettuce or spinach have around 16 calories. A large stalk of celery has only 10 calories. 1 large ear of corn has 123 calories. 1 cup of broccoli has 15 calories, but packed with nutrients. And an orange has 70 calories, again, according to that same database. So the good thing about a lot of these foods is that they contain a lot of water, they contain a lot of fiber, so they're calorie light, but they make us feel full. So the more of these foods we can have in our diet, the much better for us in terms of, one, making us feel alive, having low calories, but making sure we're feeling full. You may have heard the term empty calories. So basically, empty calories contain few to no nutrients. They don't provide us with anything nutritionist. They often come from added sugars or solid fats. Solid fats that solidify at room temperature, like butter, shortening and fats found in some meats. They can occur naturally, but are often added to foods. And again, we probably look at this picture on the right, we're like, oh my God, they taste so damn good. Yes, they do. And again, my message is not to cut them out, but it's to understand and acknowledge that these have calories, they're not nutritionists for us, and we maybe need to balance that. So when we understand the calories that we need in a day, you can decide what percentage of this should come into your diet. You know, are we not having any of this, or are we having 50% of our diet on this? We need to really understand how many of these do you want to come from empty calories. I can't make that decision for you, but with the education of this, you can then make your own call. But ultimately, it needs to get you to where you want to get to in terms of your goal. So how many typical foods have a lot of empty calories? Well, ice cream, fizzy drinks, cheese, pizza, processed meats like ham and sausages, examples of popular foods with empty calories. Some of these foods like cheese and pizza also do contain some nutrients. So like cheese is high in calcium and contains some protein. Pizza sauces, toppings and crust can have some nutrients, but other foods like fizzy drinks and most sweets contain only empty calories. They are empty calorie foods. So in terms of calories and weight loss, so though it is important to consume sufficient calories, you know, counting and cutting calories can help many people shed pounds. Calories are expended through physical activity, which is great for us right now. So for example, running a mile might burn around 112 calories. You know, that was something I just read in Runner's World. And obviously that does depend on, you know, your intensity and your sex and your age and your height and everything and your weight, but it's a good guide. With the Centre of Disease Control and Prevention refers to the balance of calories burned and calories consumed as a caloric balance, and that's really what I'm talking about today. Is what is our caloric balance going to be? You know, how much of that is going to come from low? How much of that is going to come from high density? How much of that is going to come from empty calories? But understanding the caloric balance is the ultimate goal of my presentation today. It functions like a scale. So when you're in balance, the calories consumed are balanced by the calories burned. This means you will maintain your body weight. According to the same study, if you're maintaining your weight, you're in caloric balance. This means that every day you're consuming roughly the same amount of calories that you're burning. If you're in caloric excess, you are eating more calories than you're burning, and you will gain weight. Physics, biology. If you're in calorific deficit, you're going to be burning more calories than you're eating. You will lose weight. Very oversimplified. There are other things that I'm going to talk about later on, like stress and other things that can impact your ability internally to burn fat and lose weight. But ultimately, calories is the number one thing that we should probably be looking at. So when people want to lose weight, they often attempt to have a calorific deficit. But even a person with a calorific deficit does need to make sure they're consuming sufficient calories to function and stay healthy. So we are going to talk about what is the balance. So eating enough calories, in particular from protein, helps build muscle mass during the weight loss process. And consuming sufficient calories during weight loss process is also important to maintaining a healthy metabolic rate. So things like chronic undereating, like eating 800 to 1,000 calories a day over time, will lower your resting metabolic rate, which impacts how many calories you burn and your metabolic machinery. So a very efficient rule of thumb, my guidance, is to aim for around 300 to 500 calorie deficit, which supports weight loss and maintains calories for essential metabolic needs. It also doesn't restrict the individual too much that it can't be sustained. We're going to talk about the importance of that. Choosing the right deficit for you so that you are not craving high calorie foods too much and enter into a binge eating is really important. So, however, if you do want to lose weight, a calorie deficit is a must. So what does the research say? The research says, all of these diets that are out there, the most important thing, and I'm going to just quote a quote from the International Journal of Obesity here, which I think wraps up the biggest message from today. And it goes like this: regardless of an assigned diet, I'll let that sink in, 12-month weight change was greater in the most adherent. What does that mean? It means that we must stick to the approach that we can sustain. That is the most important thing, regardless of diet. Because if we don't, we see these statistics here. If we can't sustain and we can't adhere and we can't keep the approach consistent, you get this yo-yoing. The average dieter in the UK starts and fails 4 new diets a year. We need to understand that the diet industry is flawed. A third of dieters last 1 month. A quarter of dieters make it to 3 months. And the average dieter results in long-term weight gain of 11 pounds, 4 kilograms. Remember what we spoke about just now. We have huge deficits. It's an approach that we can't sustain. We end up losing our metabolism. We end up going back and reverting back to our original eating habits. Because our metabolism is lower, guess what? We can't burn the foods that we're taking in as much as we did when we could. So it's not about what diet you do. It's about which diet you stick to. It's the one thing in common that the research is all saying. It's about finding your own calorie balance. Here's an example of all the diets out there: keto, paleo, vegetarian, vegan, Mediterranean, raw diet, low carb diet, no sugar diet, the summer diet, the juice diet, the green juice diet. There's so many out there. Low fat, low carb, raw juice, intermittent fasting, cut out alcohol. I mean, it's a huge world out there, but it's about consistency. So many diets can bring about weight loss results, or many of these diets can bring about the weight loss results you want, but how many of these will you stick to? Pick one that you enjoy and pick it to stick to. If not, the diet will end. So the science says choose an approach that you enjoy and stick to it for the long term, or you'll be another statistic of the flawed diet industry. So I'm going to share with you 3 simple proven tactics that work time and time again. Keep it simple, because if we overcomplicate it, we won't stick to it. So my first top tip is around awareness. How many of you actually know your personal calorie balance based upon your age, sex, height, activity levels? There are so many things that come into that balance. So I put here for you a really useful way to work out your base metabolic rate. Your base metabolic rate is the calories that you need every single day just to maintain your internal processes: brain function, heartbeat, respiration, circulation system, everything just for you to survive. That's your base metabolic rate. Your body just burns calories just to keep all that going. So how do you do that? So what I've done is I've just chosen a simple calculator. It sounds very specific, I know, but it's something that the macro calculator by Roy Harrington, if you put that into the Google search, I just find it was very simple to use, and it spits out some really clear data for you. Put that into your Google search engine, simply input your details. It will ask for your age, sex, height. It will ask for your activity amount as well. I won't get too technical now, but it's based upon a very well-known equation that's used in the physique industry. So people do a lot of physique competitions. They use the Mifflin-St. Jeor equation, and this is the same equation that's used out there in the industry. So simply input your details and see what comes out. You'll have your BMR data, which again is your base metabolic rate. But what's also important is what's called your TDEE, your total daily energy expenditure. How is that different to your BMR? It's different because the TDEE talks about how much are you doing. You guys are working out right now. We might be walking to the bus, we might walk to the train station, we might do other activities, cleaning the house, etc. All of these, so your base metabolic rate plus all of your activity is known as your total daily energy expenditure, so for example, for myself, I might have a base metabolic rate of 2,300 calories, but based upon my activity levels, that my TDEE might be up to nearer 3,000 calories. That was for me to maintain my current weight. Once you know your calorie, your BMR and what you should be eating, that's very specific to you, it's important that you then set your goal. Now, do you want to have weight loss, or do you want to maintain your weight, or do you want to even increase your weight if you want to put on, say, more muscle, or we can talk about another post where there's 3 different body types, but ultimately, what's your calorie goal? Again, you might want to decide to do that. A few little top tips to help you do that is a rule of thumb when you're calculating this. A lot of people talk about wanting to burn fat. So just to help you appreciate this as a long-term thing, 3,500 calories equals 1 pound of fat. I'll just let that sink in. 3,500 calories is 1 pound of fat, which means that if you want to lose 2 pounds of fat per week, you need to be in a calorie deficit of 7,000 calories, which is why this is a long-term process. Have simple goals which are achievable. 1 to 2 pounds of weight loss and fat loss per week is achievable, but it's also going to have to make you really focus on that. Wanting to lose a stone within 2 weeks, largely unrealistic. A lot of that will be from, let's say, water loss, or you'll be starving the body, so your body will lose a lot of muscle glycogen. So to make this long term and stick at it, I'd recommend around 1 to 2 pounds per week, which means that you'll be aiming for around a 500 calorie deficit per day. So that's just for 1 pound of fat. So I hope that kind of helps with your calorie goal. Set your calorie goal. Again, do you want to be in a deficit? Do you want to maintain, or do you want to increase weight? If you want to increase weight, then the opposite is true. If you want to increase 1 to 2 pounds per week, then look to have a 500 calorie surplus per day to get that 1 pound increase per week. So set your calorie goal is my second thing that I would like you to do. What gets measured gets improved. Very, very common term in the industry, but if you're not tracking it and you're not measuring it, then you're out there not really knowing what you're doing is working. It's the same for any of you listening to me here that's in business. There's no way that you go on a project and not set KPIs, indicators, to understand whether your business is a success or not, or that project is. This is exactly the same. So it must be sustainable. We talked a little bit about that in the last slide. It must result in the calorie balance you need. So again, in terms of how we measure it, I'm going to give you 2 options to bring us to the end of this presentation. So the 2 most popular ones that I've seen that make a difference are using an app. So number one for me is using an app. There are two versions. Number one is using an app, using technology to do that. Now, I would recommend that, MyFitnessPal is a great app that's out there. There are other apps out there, by the way, but this is just one that I use, and I know a lot of other people use. And simply, you input the foods onto the app, and it calculates all of your calories and all of your macros for you. Now, you might be cooking meals which are a bit obscure, and you might need to put the individual ingredients in. And I understand the con of this. Initially, this process can seem like it's a bit laborious. I haven't got the time to be inputting this data, but I can say to you that all of the foods you've input into the app are stored. So once you've generally done 1 to 2 weeks of inputting your food into the app, then all you do is you simply drag and drop and you select it. So a lot of people that don't like sort of using this because of that, but you can also scan barcodes. So if you're a pack of carrots, or you've just bought a salad from the shop, or whatever it might be, then you can scan that barcode, and MyFitnessPal brings all that data into it as well. And as I said, it stores your regular foods, drinks, and meals. So if you're going to go for this, it's brilliant. It's trackable. You look at your total calories and your macros per day, and it keeps you on track. And it's an amazing education tool to understand, wow, a cup of brown rice equals that, or my avocado equals that, or my God, wow, that glass of wine equals 160, 70 calories. It's all really good education for you, and you can really get a good sense of the awareness for you. And you balance between what you need and what you enjoy, right? So let's say, for example, you wanted to eat 80% good foods and 20% you wanted to have what you wanted. That was your empty calories. Then you can simply put that into the app. I would also recommend that it does take some personal modifications. So once you're in it, we are different. Our metabolisms are different. Our age, genetics, stress levels, lean muscle mass, our training goals are all different. So input the calorie goal that you want in there, but the first data you put in there, you're going to have to maybe tweak the numbers a little bit until you get the results you want. But again, amazing tracking tool. The last one is from a nutrition school called Precision Nutrition. So feel free to look up Precision Nutrition. It's a fantastic resource. A very well-known nutritionist in the industry called John Berardi heads this up. And actually something that he promotes is not so much tracking using an app, which is very useful for a lot of people, but actually using your own hands as portion control. The useful thing about using your own hands as portion control is it's relative to your size. So if you're 6'5", if you're a 6'5" male, then using your hands to guide you on protein, vegetables, carbs means it's very relevant to you, versus say you're 5 foot male or female and you're a lot slighter, your proportion of your hands is generally in line with your body. So this has been widely used by thousands of people, and a really, really great way of measuring that. So what we've seen is that for males, for proteins, this is per dinner plate. Proteins, if you have 2 palms of proteins for males and 1 palm for females, that's thickness of the palm as well as the circumference. Vegetables, we're looking at 2 closed fists for males, so not within the fist, but it's the once you close the fist, it's the outer circumference of the fist. 2 fists for males and 1 fist for females. Carbohydrates, so a cupped hand, so 2 cupped hands together for males and 1 cupped hand for females. And fats would be 2 thumb sizes for males and 1 thumb size for females. Very quickly, what I mean by proteins would be things like meat, fish, eggs, cottage cheese, Greek yogurt, vegetables, spinach, kale, broccoli, salads, carrots. Carbohydrates, grains, starches, beans and fruits, and fats, oils, butters, nuts, and seeds. So between these two, I would definitely recommend just to flick through, know your calorie balance, set your calorie goal, and then figure out which way you want to track it. Do you want to use an app, or would you rather use another method which is less maybe sort of trackable and sort of more less science-based? So that's it from me. I hope all that was really, really useful. Again, calories, something everyone loves to talk about, but very, very few really focus on. We're going to talk a lot more about macronutrients, because obviously not all calories are made the same, but this is a really useful place to start for you. So my top wrap-ups: be a statistic or focus on approaches that work. No food is bad, so find out how much of it you want to come from high calorie, low calorie, and calorie dense foods. If you can't stick to it, forget it long term. That's what the science says. And the Pareto principle uses that 80-20 rule, whereby, you know, if 80% of the time you're good, 20% of the time you're bad, it helps keeps your cravings in control. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I will see you again tomorrow for more training, and we'll look at another post for nutrition next week. Take care, everyone. Have a great day.